the British state.
Okay, we're going to move on to the transitional protections, and Bel Ribeiro-Addy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Secretary. I think you've covered what you think the purpose of the mandatory minimum economic requirement is, but we've heard that this proposal will affect a huge number of people, and regardless of the arguments about high earners and the best and the brightest, these are probably the exact industries where we currently have quite large shortages, and those that we called essential during the pandemic. So is the government considering transitional protections for people who are already in the UK that will be affected by this change?
Well, we ask a specific question in the consultation on transitional arrangements. So obviously with any of these changes that there are going to be knock-on impacts. What I would say on the mandatory economic contribution, we're looking at just the threshold for paying national insurance contributions is really quite low, actually. And one of the criticisms in Parliament when I made a statement on these changes was, in fact, that it might be too low. So, but I think that setting it at the threshold at which you first start making contributions, and you are in fact making national insurance contributions at that point, seems fair to me. Obviously, there will be some groups that can't meet that, and primarily, I would imagine, in the dependents, group. And so we will want to consider what, if any, exemptions or additional arrangements we want to make for those people. But we've had something like 130,000, I think, responses to the consultation. I'm sure there is a lot in there about carers, about people with disabilities, women who've had to take maternity leave, others who will not be able to fulfil the mandatory earnings requirement. So we are consulting, and we will look at all of those particular examples and think carefully about what additional arrangements we might make for those people.
Okay, thinking of another group of people that it might affect, would it be fair to apply this requirement to households where one parent is caring for children rather than working?
Well, so, I mean, again, I think having published the consultation, there's been, I think, some helpful discussion around whether you look at purely individuals' earnings or household income potentially. So, it's not unusual in our arrangements to consider the income of a whole household as opposed to just one or two individuals within it. Again, the consultation is open on this point, so I'm pretty sure we've already had some strong representations on this point as well. And it could be that you set a minimum income requirement, for example, for one partner, in order to, account for a whole household income system. But as I say, it is a consultation. We are genuinely consulting on these questions. We've done it this way because we know that there will be knock-on impacts, and we want to have considered them properly and carefully.
So there are going to be plans to assess people as households as opposed to individuals? No,
you shouldn't take what I've said as a plan. I've said that the consultation is genuinely open on this point, and we've already had representations making some of these points to us. We will look at the totality of the responses that we've received before we design the final policy.
Okay, so at the moment the Home Office does assess people as individuals, but I suppose why do that at the moment when people generally plan as households?
Well, so the initial proposals are obviously based on individual contribution being the means by which you earn settlement into the country. So that is the initial proposal that's being consulted on. But we are very aware that there will be knock-on consequences for those who cannot meet the test that we are proposing as an individual. And again, as I say, we've received many representations about both the sorts of people that could be affected and also the other means by which we might account for those individuals that fulfills the policy intention and stays within the parameters that we have set of the new system, which is that we want to reward contribution. So, as I say, within those parameters, we're looking obviously at the consultation responses that we get.
Thank you. And in the evidence we've received from immigrants, we're finding that they've planned their lives around a 5-year route, that's selling property in their home country, turning down other jobs, delaying having children. Do you think it's fair to these people for the terms of their route to settlement to be changed after they've already arrived?
Look, I think what's fair is that a government and a country should be able to respond to the circumstances that we face. And I think that it's actually, we have 2 set-piece rule changes every year, usually in April and then in the autumn for immigration rule changes. It's not uncommon for us to change our rules. These are obviously bigger changes, but they are there because they're dealing with a much bigger set of circumstances. As I say, the numbers of migrants into the country between 21 and 2024 is an unprecedented level. The changes on the skills levels required to come to the country and the numbers of dependents that have arrived, I think does demand an answer from the government. And what you're trading off is a set of potential obligations to people who've come to the country versus your obligations to your citizens and your own long-term residents in the country as well. So there is a choice here and there's a trade-off here, and we're trying to find a balanced way through what is a very difficult problem. And I think that the proposals that we put forward are trying to meet that policy intention. But as I say, we do recognise that these would be big changes. They could have some unintended consequences. There might be groups that we weren't aware of.
I think we can take from this, it's a consultation and you are consulting.
It's a genuine piece of work, and I do recognise that there are big changes that are potentially happening here. What I would say, despite the fact that we're consulting, it is inconceivable that literally nobody who's currently here would be affected by any of these changes, and I think we should just be upfront about that. But beyond that, obviously, we will see what the responses say.
So do we think that people who would qualify for ILR today but couldn't afford to pay the application fee today would be affected by these changes? Would the changes apply to them?
Well, so the basis on which an application for indefinite leave to remain is assessed is based on the rules at the time that you apply. So that's always been the case. I think that was upheld in case law. It's been tested in court. It's been upheld in case law since 2009.
I think a lot of these questions are coming up because of the anxiety of retrospectivity. It's causing a lot of issues. So, yeah, that's the question. So if somebody applied today, if somebody had the right to apply today but couldn't afford it today.
So an application is assessed based on the rules that are enforced at the point at which the application is made, not what the rules were when the person came to the country.
Not whether they qualify, it's when they apply.
It's when you apply.
So if they can't afford to do it today, but they can afford to do it afterwards, then
and it's
there
always
will be
on
the
point
rules
about,
at that point.
And that's the point I'm making, that it has been assess on the rules that are enforced at the point of application for many years. That is not a new change. It's not a thing that we've just done that's different. It has been tested in court in the past. There is 2009 case law on this point. It is the rules that are enforced at the point the application is made.
Okay, but just going back to the retrospective nature of it, what advice did you seek when deciding as to whether or not to apply the changes retrospectively?
Well, as I've said already, we've had a very large number of people arrive in the country, much more than were expected, in an unprecedented way. I think it does demand an answer from the government, because potentially, without any changes, a very large number of people, 1.6 million on our central estimate, become eligible for citizenship in the next few years. On any measure, that is a big new number for a country to absorb.
Oh, yeah, no, especially, it was more on the advice that you saw.
But so what I've asked for are policy proposals to try to meet the challenge that we've got. And I think that what we have set out in our consultation is a new way of thinking about how settlement is earned in this country, how we might reward the behaviours we want to see, how we might take some time away from people, add on more time if, for example, they end up accessing benefits. It's a system of economic migration, and I think that the proposals we have are trying to meet that challenge.
Secretary, I think we need to move on. So we're going to move on to the